Welcome back to the final day of the 19th Annual Georgia Bio Innovation Summit. Once again, thank you to all of our sponsors for supporting Georgia Bio in this important event. A special thank you to Boehringer Ingelheim and Everett Hoekstra for his leadership of the summit. We have a robust morning keynote today, but before we get started, I would like to invite Clark Dean, Executive Managing Director and Partner for Transaction Sciences with Transwestern and a board member of the Center for Global Health Innovation, to make a special announcement. As I mentioned yesterday morning in the keynote, Georgia Bio underwent a restructuring for a variety of strategic reasons, and I'm excited to have Clark here to provide an update on one of those really important reasons.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Maria, and hello to all of the participants in this year's Georgia Bio Innovation Summit. It is my pleasure to present this briefing, an update on an exciting project we've been working on for almost 2.5 years for a global health innovation district. So as Maria has shared, the Center for Global Health Innovation really exists to unite the global health technology, and life sciences community, not only here in Atlanta and Georgia, but truly around the world. We're doing so through the activities of 5 different divisions. As you know, Georgia Bio is one of those divisions, along with the Georgia Global Health Alliance, the STEM Institute, the recently launched Global Health Crisis Coordination Center, which was launched to help connect and coordinate the private sector in the response for COVID and the pandemic. And then lastly, the Global Health Innovation District. So when we started this process 2.5 years ago, we got together with members of the community. Many of you provided input on what you wanted to do together. Believing that form should always follow function, we tried to figure out what is it you want to do in a district? What would make a powerful hub, and what value would it create? What we heard is that you guys wanted a place that would stimulate, accelerate and facilitate innovation, crisis response, value creation, research and development, mobilization, collaboration, and capital raising around global health, health technology, and life sciences. In particular, around innovation, we heard that you wanted problem-driven innovation, or some refer to as Pascal's quadrant, this idea of having user-inspired and use-inspired innovation and invention and research. We started by looking at the whole network of this global health technology, and life sciences ecosystem. Where these entities exist today, where are the research universities, where are the corporate sponsors, and you can see it sort of scattered out all over the metro Atlanta area. But we found after studying and talking to folks that there was really a central point that was the center of gravity for this entire network, and that existed right here. At the intersection of Georgia Tech's Tech Square, which is marching south, and Emory's Midtown campus, marching north. This seemed to be an ideal place to really anchor this ecosystem of global health, health technology, and life sciences, and provide for additional development and growth to attract these groups together to really facilitate all of the activities that we want to within the ecosystem. The particular building that we are in the process of finalizing our negotiations with is known as Tower Square. It's the former headquarters for Bell South and then AT&T here in Atlanta. It is actually about 2 blocks away from Tech Square's CODA development, catty-cornered to Anthem's new innovation center, across the street from the new Norfolk Southern headquarters building that's under construction, and about 1.5 blocks away from Emory's new cancer tower that's being built right directly south of the Bank of America Plaza in Midtown. It sits right on a MARTA stop, so the MARTA actually comes up into the building and provides a multimodal way for members of this ecosystem to get from their various nodes on the network to the central place that's authentically ours as an entire ecosystem and not controlled by one entity or another. In fact, during the process, we often referred to this as Project Fort, using this analogy that if Maria and I are elementary school friends, and I go over to Maria's house and we build a fort in her backyard. It's Maria and Clark's fort, but it kind of feels like Maria's fort because it's in her backyard. And if we went to my house and did the same thing, it's Maria and Clark's fort, but it kind of feels like Clark's fort because it's in his backyard. But if we went to that, empty lot in between our houses or the woods next door and built our fort there, it's authentically ours. What the Global Health Innovation District will prove to be is a place that can truly be a place that everyone shares in the whole ecosystem to work together. This particular building, as many of you know, is very big. It's a 45-story tower with a 7-story adjacent annex building. And for the core collaborative infrastructure, Gensler has helped us put together designs for 2 floors of collaborative co-working space, co-working with a purpose. They'll be available for members of this ecosystem to take single desks, small office suites, medium office suites, or large office suites to enable that collaborative activity around the innovation programming that will be occurring at the center. It'll also have wet lab co-working space on the 3rd floor, and we can expand that to be 1 or more of those laboratory floors to accommodate larger laboratory requirements as well. And then we have the conference center, which will be a world-class conference center. What we heard so much from this group of people within the ecosystem is that they're meeting in subpar hotel ballrooms all over the metropolitan area. What they really needed was a highly professional, well-resourced conference center with a hospitality approach to convening. This will be complete with food service and beautiful spaces that really stimulate and inspire people and participants. The conference center this is an early rendering of the conference center. This particular kind of center stage area will be perfect for TED Talks, for vendor presentations, et cetera, that occur during conference days. Through that feature, you can see the food service area, which will be a food service marketplace. We'll cater the entire innovation center, the 2 floors of office and the laboratory floors as well, and provide food service for the conferencing that occurs in the conference center. This particular slide shows a rendering of the lounge area associated with the co-working office space. So this will occur on 2 different floors within the tower, and will provide areas of coffee bar, lounge seating to enable that collaboration beyond just the conference rooms and the individual offices that will exist in the co-working office component to help build community. This is desperately small, right? So ridiculously small for you guys to see, but what you can see on the left is the renderings for the conference center. We can see down towards the bottom, we'll have a very large general session room. This is 70,000 square foot floor plate. So a very large general session room that can be broken in 2. You have appropriate breakout areas for different meetings and presentations. That area to the left center, you see is the food service market. Up to the top in the middle, we have the Emergency Operations Center for the GHC3 that already includes many corporate partners, NGOs, and others in the private sector who have really come together to create new solutions and important solutions during the COVID crisis. As you proceed across the bridge between the annex and the tower building, what we can see is the 1st floor of the co-working office. That will be the headquarters for the Center for Global Health Innovation. It'll also have a variety of large corporates, small corporates, startup entities, research universities, and others who wish to collaborate around global health, health technology, and life sciences. This represents the 2nd floor. Again, as you can see, a different combination of small offices, mid-sized offices, large offices, and collaborative conference space and training rooms that will exist in the tower space. And then lastly, we have this wet lab area. So this is a full floor of wet lab spaces, both collaborative bench areas, so people that just need 1 bench for their research, but then also private labs that are available for groups that want private labs for various durations, from small labs up to medium-sized labs that could be connected, all the way up to large-scale laboratories. The 2nd floor of lab space that we're envisioning will actually have larger-scale labs for graduating entities as they proceed. And that is so that gives you an idea of the context that exists in this planned development. What we would like to get from you is your interest in participating. If you are interested in participating in either the co-working office space or the co-working laboratory space, please send an email to our favorite Maria Thacker-Gothi. Let her know. We can provide additional information. and set up a consultation to discuss how you can get involved in this exciting initiative. As we said, we are finalizing our negotiations and look forward to, with a targeted launch date of fourth quarter of 2021. So again, fourth quarter of 2021 is what we're targeting, and we look forward to having many of you participate in this exciting development. Thank you.
Thank you, Clark. Some very exciting news indeed. Now on to our keynote. Preparing for the next pandemic is the theme for this keynote, and to kick us off, it is my honor to introduce Georgia native and former Georgia Governor, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue.
Hello everyone, and thank you again for allowing me to join you today by video. I remember fondly when I was Governor of Georgia visiting you in person. I thoroughly enjoyed working with Georgia Bio then, and I know the innovative work that you all were doing then hasn't stopped yet. As you all know, America has led the way with bioengineering, dramatically increasing the productivity of the world's farmland and increasing yields. Our method has proven to work as we consistently produce the world's safest, most abundant, and most affordable food supply while using less inputs and conservation methods to preserve the land. In February, I announced the USDA's Agricultural Innovation Agenda at the Ag Outlook Forum. We believe it's our job at USDA to help tell the great story of American agriculture and highlight the successes and advances we've made to feed the growing world. One example of this is how U.S. agricultural output has grown significantly over the past 90 years. We've increased the production of food and fiber by over 400% while using nearly 10% less land. This growth would not have been possible if it had not been for innovation. Gene editing techniques that allow plants to fight off natural pests, resist drought, and produce more wholesome vitamins and minerals necessary for good health have revolutionized our food supply. Further advances in biotechnology for both plants and livestock will be necessary to feed our growing world population. We can achieve this goal only if we let science be our guide. Decades of scientific data demonstrate the safety and benefits of these technologies, but our regulatory system has not often kept pace with the innovation and needs of our producers, developers, and agricultural research community. President Trump signed an executive order which brought greater regulatory streamlining, harmonization, predictability, and transparency to our agricultural biotechnology regulatory processes, and to help simplify the innovation of these technologies here at home. As part of that effort, USDA brought our plant biotechnology regulations into the 21st century by modernizing our regulatory system through the Secure Rule, which was the first comprehensive revision to these regulations since 1987. We'll need your continued participation and partnership as we move to the critical work of helping others to win the hearts and minds of some of our international partners in fully understanding and embracing the benefits and safety of these technologies. But looking forward, USDA will continue to promote science-based advancements in agricultural biotechnology. We're also committed to working with our federal partners to create a similarly innovation-friendly regulatory structure for the advances in the animal agricultural sector that are quickly coming. Now more than ever, we see the importance of biotechnology in our everyday lives. When the COVID-19 hit, the entire food supply chain and agricultural industry were not immune to its effects. We learned a lot about the food supply chain and the need to be able to react to sudden disruptions to ensure grocery store shelves are stocked and the agricultural industry can continue to provide a safe food supply. One of the things we've seen is the critical role innovation, specifically biological innovation, can play in mitigating supply chain risk and building resilience into our food and farming systems of the future. Just as we've seen through the COVID-19 pandemic, complex problems require a whole system approach to find solutions. Today, pest and disease events are more frequent, and we can utilize One Health to solving these types of issues. Our goal is to ultimately optimize health outcomes based on the interconnection between people, animals, plants, and their shared environment. As a graduate veterinarian, I recognize the strengthening of collaboration and shared learning to prevent the entry and spread of these pests and diseases in the United States. Ensuring a healthy population will require an all-hands-on-deck approach. We at USDA are thankful for the work many of you have done to tackle these issues and find innovative solutions. The work that Georgia Bio is doing is the type of private sector initiatives we like to see, and we want to continue to work together to develop new technologies to advance agriculture in America. So thank you all for allowing me to join you today, and I look forward to when we can get together again in person. I hope you have a great rest of your conference. Take care and God bless.
My name is Russell Medford, and I'm the chairman and CEO of Covinos, an advanced medical technologies company based here in Atlanta. I also have the honor of serving as the chairman of the board of directors of the Center for Global Health Innovation, which is the parent organization of Georgia Bio, as well as the Global Health Crisis Coordination Center. Since the beginning of this pandemic, as the chairman of the Center for Global Health Innovation, I've had the privilege of working closely with national and international leaders and organizations in public health, technology, government, the private sector, and academia to help identify and implement innovative and collaborative solutions and policies for a wide array of critical challenges our nation and the world is facing in combating COVID-19. It's from this perspective that I want to tee up the objectives and goals for this important session on preparing for the next pandemic. Let us place into context that we are still, as a state, country, and as a world, very much in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. Yesterday, over 120,000 more Americans were diagnosed with COVID-19, and the rate of this increase continues to accelerate. We have developed and continue to develop considerable and unprecedented real-world experience in dealing with COVID-19 at the county, state, federal, and global levels. How we assess with as much objectivity as possible these experiences will bear heavily on addressing successfully the ongoing challenges we face with COVID-19 today, as well as the prevention of COVID-19-like pandemics in the future, and also clarify what roles we all must play as individuals and institutions. Our panelists will be addressing the following broad questions. What do we know today that will enable us to be more successful in dealing with the pandemic as it stands today and tomorrow, as well as in future pandemics? Where have we been successful? For example, the unprecedented and effective cooperation and collaboration amongst government, public health and medical experts, academia, the biotechnology and pharmaceutical industries to develop and bring into clinical trials COVID-19 vaccines and therapeutics at an unprecedented speed and effectiveness. Where do we need to improve? For example, the coordination, implementation, and consistent communications of a national and international response strategy. And what do we still need to know today that we still don't have a handle on? For example, where do we need evidence-based and data-driven research in public health, health equity and disparities, and economics to make informed policy decisions on these complex and often conflicting issues? Let me close with the following observation. For too many years, through multiple administrations, we have underfunded and neglected our public health and health infrastructure, both at the state and federal levels. Now a war has come to our shores in the form of a deadly and implacable virus. Going forward, and to protect the American people, we need to plan, prioritize, and invest in our public health and health systems in this country to the same level as we plan, prioritize, and invest in our vaunted military. All that being said, it's my pleasure today to welcome a distinguished panel today to discuss preparing for the next pandemic. Each of our three panelists will have a few minutes to introduce themselves and to give their perspective, and then we'll convene as a group to address as a group some overriding questions. First up, it's a special honor to have on our panel Dr. Kathleen Toomey, who serves as Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Public Health since March of 2019. Kathleen has had a long and distinguished career in the public health field, holding key leadership positions with the state of Georgia and both national and international leadership positions with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As Commissioner of Public Health, she is truly in the front lines of this battle and has worked tirelessly to combat the COVID-19 pandemic in Georgia. Kathleen?
Thanks so much, Russ, and I hope the audio is coming through all right. In my short time, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that I think are particularly important as we're looking at future pandemic response, but also thinking about our current response. One, and perhaps most importantly, you've already addressed it, is infrastructure. We found out very quickly that our current infrastructure in public health, both in terms of training for staff, but also the IT infrastructure that we had to monitor disease trends and get that information out and share with the public and policymakers in an effective, consistent, accurate way, was not up to the task. 18 measles cases is very different than hundreds of thousands, millions of COVID cases. And I think we recognize that even as we're addressing the current pandemic, we need to be building a new infrastructure for disease reporting and collaboration, not only between the medical community within Georgia and the United States and the world, but also with other partners, which brings me to my second point, collaboration. The collaborations in public health have been unprecedented, not only working across districts and counties with other public health providers and entities and community organizations, but also hospitals, medical providers, and very importantly with the business community. We have worked with the chambers, the Hispanic chambers, large corporations, small business. It has been an unprecedented opportunity to strengthen that work together as we move forward with the pandemic. I, for one, strongly believe that we can keep people healthy at the same time we can keep the economy open. And that's what we've been doing. And the other important collaboration has been in the agricultural industry, clearly an economic driver here in Georgia. That has been an important partnership for us in public health, particularly as we worked directly with farmers, work with the Department of Agriculture here in Georgia to ensure safety and help train and develop protocols in a way that we've never done before. And last, before my 3 minutes is up, is leadership. Leadership is so critically important at every level of the state, and in public health, the reflection of the fact that clear, consistent guidelines and information has to be part of our job every day, even as we reflect on the fact that our knowledge of the virus is changing constantly. And we have to be able to make that case and make the case that even as we are changing our message, that message is strongly reflecting the science that we know. But that's just a preview of some of the things I hope we'll be able to talk about further. Thanks, Russ. I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next up, it's both a personal and professional pleasure to have on our panel Ms. Patty Fritz, who serves as Vice President and Head of U.S. Corporate Affairs at UCB Pharma, where she oversees public policy, government affairs, advocacy, communications, and public affairs. Patty is also the chairman of the board of Georgia Bio, as well as serving with me on the board of the Center for Global Health Innovation. Patty is one of our state's and nation's influential leaders in the life sciences, innovation, and health policy. And I'm just looking forward to continuing this dialogue regarding COVID-19 and her perspectives from the industry side. Patty?
Thank you, Russ, and good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here with such a impressive group of panelists this morning. I'm going to start just by sharing just a bit about UCB. As many of you know, UCB is a global biopharmaceutical company committed to discovering and providing innovative solutions that address significant unmet needs for people living with severe chronic disease. And I'm really proud to say that our U.S. operations headquarters is right here in Georgia. And I think I share many of the observations and experiences and highlights that Dr. Toomey has shared with us. At UCB, our priorities, like many of you, changed earlier this year. No one woke up in January and thought, oh, I need to prepare for a pandemic. It's required all of us to increase our agility, to be more adaptable, to be more collaborative, more supportive, and frankly, more innovative than ever to ensure that we're all playing our part in being in this response. And reflecting on what we should take with us to replicate, to strengthen a future response. There's so many experiences and observations, but there were a few that came to mind. First, guiding all our leadership actions through a set of key principles. At UCB, we had to rethink, we had to reimagine, and in doing so, we were always guided by a set of leadership principles. First and foremost, ensuring the safety of our employees and an uninterrupted supply of medicines to patients. Most of our non-lab US employees have been working remote since March. Our labs implemented special protocols so that they could continue. And in fact, we refitted labs to do some COVID testing. We've had to adapt our manufacturing so that we can continue to deliver a supply of medicines for those patients that need them. And like Dr. Toomey mentioned, the other, I think, really important element has taught us so much is that even though in many instances we are competitors, when it comes to finding solutions for humanity, we can be a force. And I think we've come together, companies, business and government, digital partners with scientists. It's been just extraordinary. UCB is participating in quite a number of collaborations, many of them quite unique, and leveraging new models of collaboration that we've not used before. From a scientific perspective, we've embarked on a number of collaborations that offer scientific expertise to other researchers and to governments to both accelerate and enhance testing, but also to accelerate the availability of new therapeutics to treat those impacted by COVID-19. One example is a partnership we have with Seattle Structural Genomics Center for Infectious Disease, where we're analyzing SARS-CoV-2 proteins. And another is the COVID R&D Alliance, which is an alliance of multiple industry partners who are collectively bringing together their assets to try to find a solution, to find therapeutics. Another new area, and I think that we've seen now that how technology can accelerate research. At UCB, we're amplifying the power of scientific innovation through digital transformation. We're using this digital transformation to accelerate discovery and increase the speed of finding new candidate therapeutics. UCB is a part of a global initiative called COVID-19 and have seen our ability to identify targets, screening processes that took months, 6 months go to 3 days. So it's just been a phenomenal experience. And lastly, I would say that we all have recognized our commitment to community. I think all of us have come together in this lived experience of a pandemic. It's really united us, and I think we've all come to learn that we are stronger together. I look forward to the dialogue this morning and the opportunity to share more about what we've learned and experienced, as I'm certain that this is an important part of building a roadmap to help us be more prepared for any future pandemic.
Thank you, Patty. To round out our panel, I'm pleased to have Dr. Doug Ensley. He's a distinguished veterinarian and academician whose perspectives on COVID-19 as a zoonotic disease, a term that means a virus or infectious agent that can jump back and forth from animals to humans, and its impact on human and animal health and the nation's food supply. Those perspectives, I think, are an important, at an important dimension for us, considering how this has started, where we've gotten to with COVID-19, and where we have to lead ourselves going forward. Doug has had a distinguished career that includes Iowa State University and the University of Georgia College of Veterinary Medicine. I have a daughter who's graduating that very same school as a veterinarian, and he now serves as professional services veterinarian at Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health. Doug?
Thank you, Dr. Medford, and thank you for allowing me to participate in this panel. I think my perspective is probably a little different than everybody else, just because throughout my career, it's really been focused on population health in the animal and how important we maintain that health is. And it's been fun working with Boehringer Ingelheim that has both an animal health business and a human basis. And so they have a very unique perspective on the importance and the interaction between animals and people. And Dr. Medford talked about COVID-19 and zoonotic disease, and it's really shown that this year in the fact that if we think about SARS-CoV-1 and SARS and MERS and all of those zoonotic diseases that have a major impact on human health, and I think that really brings to forefront our training as a veterinarian, in that every time we touch an animal, we have to think about what is that disease, what is the risk of that disease and transmission to the owners of the animal, the veterinarians that are working on the animal, and all of those things. And I think that gives the veterinary profession a very unique perspective on zoonotic diseases. And you look at the livestock veterinarians who are at the forefront of keeping foreign animal diseases out of our food supply. You know, that's our specific look at that is, as a veterinarian, and I go look at an animal and I see something, even if I think it's a normal disease, if it mimics foot and mouth disease, let's bring foot and mouth disease, I need to report that, and we need to start the process to ensure that that doesn't get into our livestock population. We know that because it's been out of the livestock for so many years, and we look at the impact that it had on the UK, both from a people standpoint, you know, the mental and psychological impact on the herd people that own the cattle, the impact on the economy in several years ago. All of those things are so important to keep a forefront. And I think working with public health and the humans is some things that we can take to the human side to collaborate to really look at how we've been able to keep those diseases out of there. And the other thing that veterinarians really bring to and I think is all of us, is we understand prevention. We understand the importance of having a vaccine present and monitoring other countries for what diseases are out there. So I think we need to really take a look at that. I think we can work together to really minimize those risks to our human population and our animal population, because we know that prevention and vaccines, that's a perspective I grow up with, is once an animal gets sick, that has a long-term impact on welfare, on costs. It has an impact on the use of antibiotics, which has an impact on the human side. So I think the collaboration between human health and veterinary medicine is really important. So I'm looking forward to how we move this forward and what we do to get prepared for the next one. So thank you, Dr. Medford.
Well, thank you, Doug. Well, I want to thank each of you for your opening remarks. And I want to just toss out as a discussion point, a common theme that was raised by each of your introductory remarks, and when we met earlier in the week to discuss this panel, is the issue of how do we extend the areas of collaboration that have served us so well, the positive aspects of this, as both Kathleen and Patty mentioned, between industry and government, and accelerating the science and technology to develop therapeutics and vaccines. How do we build on those collaborative strengths to communicate and build additional trust among groups beyond our technical groups in the broader community? What it appears to be is that each of our elements are necessary but not sufficient for us to defeat this virus, this pandemic. And we have to extend that trust and transparency across all sectors of society and build upon the successes that we've had within our industry, for example, Patty, and in our direct interactions and support with the public health officials. But let's kind of explore that perhaps from your own perspective. How do we build that trust? What are the challenges that we have to overcome after now, goodness, 8 months now of 7, 8 months of struggling with this? Maybe Kathleen, I know you have some thoughts about this.
No, I sure do. Thanks. And just so you know, I've been working on this since January, so it's even been longer. This has been a public health challenge, even how to frame the issue and what it means and how to frame risk. And to me, one of the great values, both short-term and long-term values of these new collaborations, whether it be with the business community, the industry, the agricultural community, is they can communicate prevention efforts. They can communicate about how we need to mitigate in communities in a way that I cannot. Public health officials in general may not be trusted. We also have been, there's been changing information that we provided, which I think has also led to some concern that we are making it up as we're going along, when in fact we're learning as we're going along. And I have to say, social media has not been our friend. There's been so much disinformation promulgated on social media, and I don't believe the public health community is as agile as it needs to be in using social media to communicate the scientific truth of what is happening. And so I believe that these collaborations not only allow us an opportunity to strengthen our response, but also to communicate in a way to their staff, to the public, to others throughout the state, much more effectively, perhaps, than we can alone.
Patty, Doug?
Yeah, I want to build on the notion of communication. I do think that when faced with a national crisis, communication is imperative. And it is something that we've come to learn that people need more of, but they need the right information. And managing disinformation is something as a nation we have to get better at. As Dr. Toomey mentioned, we're living in a social and digital age, and information moves quickly. And so finding a way to manage that, I know that even within our employees, we found the best way to manage this is frequent communication, what you know, but more importantly, what you don't know. I think that we've learned a lot about that communication. And in communicating with partners, I think the essential element is, we were faced with, and I think it's not over characterizing to call it a crisis, came together with a common purpose. And whether it was us coming together with other companies or observing other companies coming together or working with government, we were really solely focused on what we were dealing with, what was the problem at hand. And the other is, I think that oftentimes we're inhibited by our beliefs about what we can do. And part of this is a mindset change. And how can we come together and work in different ways and still be competitors? But there are certain areas when the health of the nation is at risk where you have to come together and just share it all and put it all on the table. And enabling that, we need to enable there to be a space in the future to do that. We have learned a tremendous amount about the availability and packaging together things that we wouldn't in the normal course thought, oh, those two elements could come together and be synergistic and accelerate our path to a vaccine or to a therapeutic, and our unique partnerships, that just simple things like providing grants to restaurants who then can feed first responders. I mean, there's so many things that we can do, and we just have to be a bit more creative, but all be centrally focused on the problem at hand.
Doug?
I'll answer just from my point of view too, I think communication is such a difficult thing to do. As a former instructor at a university, one of the most difficult things to teach veterinary students, I'm just going to go back and use my background, is how do you communicate at different levels of education? I think how do you communicate a science fact to something that people understand and really do, and it has to be very short. And to me, as a veterinarian, that's the most difficult thing to do when you get out of school, is learning that communication process. How do you go to, in social media, that's brought up, is we can't use science. I hate to say this, we can't use science to dictate what that communication is. It has to be something that fits to their mindset, that communicates what we want. And we've never been very good at that. I mean, that's a struggle every day, but I think that's what this has taught us, is our communication has to be very direct, but not based completely on science. You can't teach somebody that, and you teach them the right thing from an emotional standpoint. And that's a growing difficult thing to do. If you all have an answer for that, let me know. So,
I think that's.
Go ahead, Patty.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, recognizing that we're all different. We all have different concerns. When you're communicating, you have to meet people where they are. If you're a mother with 3 small children and thinking about school, you want to know certain things. If you're a healthcare professional, you have other needs of information. If you are someone who's at risk, you have certain concerns that you need to be addressed. You want certain information, but recognizing we need to have a platform that enables communication to be delivered to people where they are, what their unique needs are. And I think we really struggled with that.
I'm sorry, Russ.
No, please go ahead, Kathleen.
No, I was just saying, and more than communication, we need to recognize that where there are gaps in people's ability to follow guidelines that are given scientifically, we have to help them, give them the tools to meet those needs, whether it be access to housing or other social supports or access to transport. I think it's one thing for all of us to say this is what you need to do. But if there are barriers in how communities or states or other entities can respond, we need to make sure that they have access to those tools. And I think that's something that this collaborative approach can help us address.
It seems like a common theme here is it's not just what we say as either experts in public health, in science, technology, animal science, economics, social, whatever. It's what people hear. And people hear different things when we say, even though we all say the same thing potentially, different groups of communities hear through a different filter, a different lens. And if we're not sensitive to what people hear rather than what we say, our efforts get lost in a sense, and we ourselves get frustrated amongst ourselves. Let me ask the question to the panel. What would be the practical step from your perch? We've all struggled with this. We've all been in the trenches to one degree or another. I'll put Kathleen actually in a completely different category. She's definitely in the front, in the trenches. But the point is, what are the practical steps that we might take across our different industry sectors and government sectors to be sensitive to and more effective in what people hear, so that we have a collective understanding and response to a very complex and serious problem that's killing a lot of us, basically?
Could I say something? I don't want to be This has been my life since January. So I'm, I think that early on, we just thought one size fits all in how we're going to communicate, and that everybody will understand. And as Dr. Ensley so eloquently pointed out, that's not the way it works. And I think we found that we need to tailor our messaging to not only to different communities, but even micro messaging those that information and to specific communities, because as you say, everyone is different, everyone hears things differently. And simply translating a message into Spanish doesn't mean you're going to be adequately informing the Latinx community in Gainesville or working on migrant farms in South Georgia. Those are all different communities. And I think we realize that we have to be much more sophisticated about how we communicate, and whether it be through surveys or active engagement and focus groups with these various sub-communities, as it were, and community great organizations like churches and other important leadership organizations in the community to better understand, as you were saying, Patty, what the understanding is, and so how we can frame those issues in a way that our realities are better understood.
Yeah, it strikes me that we have a lot of collective horsepower if we think about the public health community, the business community, the life sciences community, the academic research community right here in Georgia, and convening those through a central convener and trying to learn and understand what people heard versus what they need, and how do we establish crisis communications, if we can call it that it delivers messaging so that people hear it, and we understand those unique needs of individual communities, or as you nicely articulated, Dr. Toomey, segments of the population that may have very special, specific needs, whether they're immunocompromised or they're a certain age group or whatever that need may be. But we do have a lot amongst us, I think, coming together. We don't have to be in the crisis. We can use this crisis as an opportunity to realize the power of community.
Doug, you asked the question initially. Did that answer it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. And I think this has really shown us that within the rural community, within the ag community, and all of those things, is developing that message to let them disseminate it to the segments that is so eloquently said, to make sure that message is at the level they are. You know, we can look at the ag sector and look at extension people and getting them on board and how they go out into the community and communicate that message. I think that really gets a buy-in from people that are saying it within the community, that aren't medical doctors, but they're people that can disseminate it in a manner that's communicable. I mean, I think we're all on board with that, and that's just a difficult thing to do. I mean, but we need to do a better job of really finding those people. I think that's where we have to be.
You know, a comment was made just before, I think it was by Patty, is that certainly in the business world, in biotech and pharma, we're all competitors. Actually, we're fierce competitors. Our mission is the same. We're trying to make the world a better place, but within that context, our technology, our science, our methodologies, we want to win, and we also press each other to be better than what we are. But in times of existential crisis, where the health of the country, let alone the world, is at stake, it has been my experience now over the last 9 months now, since the beginning of this crisis, that there is a tremendous need and drive on the part of competitors, and competitors not just in business, but competitors in ideology, in social position, in politics, to come together to solve what is a crisis for all of us, irrespective of where we stand in our society. And as a plug, an important one, that's, I think, the great strength of new institutions and new organizations that have come in response to this. One being the Global Health Crisis Coordination Center for the Center for Global Health. It's that direct experience that I've had the privilege of being involved with, that where I begin to see an institutional mechanism, a new type of institutional structure that brings these diverse groups together and are beginning to ask not just the technological questions and the data management and information and analysis, but also the communications, the social determinants, and how do we consolidate our responses from all sectors of our society so that what's heard by the rest of society is productive and informative and allows us as a full population work together to defeat this. So my last question here, when we only have 5 more minutes, is, and it's the tough one, what are the practical solutions each of you might say, give 1 or 2, that didn't exist before that you'd like to see strengthened or bring into effect now going forward? If we had our magic wands, what would you like to see, 1 or 2 things that we could do that doesn't currently exist well or needs to be improved so that we have a better response going forward for COVID-19? I'll start with Kathleen.
I think clearly a vaccine, a safe, effective vaccine, and a communication plan that can address the concerns that we have, frankly, nationwide about the safety of that vaccine. I think that is going to be that, along with communication around wearing masks, social distancing, all those things that we know need to be continued. And yet, as Dr. Ensley pointed out, the science may be there, but the understanding of that science may be counter to people's feelings and beliefs, and we are not articulating that well. So I think better communication planning coupled with a safe, effective vaccine, sooner the better, and I'm looking forward to that.
And the GHC3 is working on that specifically. And a shout out to Ken Bird, the executive director, who introduced this, I think, yesterday in his session. Hattie?
Yeah, I would think that, I've observed a number of these alliances and partnerships. One of the things that I have observed coming out of it, the power is this data sharing and the transparency about what we know and what we learn in our data, and the power of computer models and AI and other applications to actually accelerate us identifying solutions. I think we need to see more of that. We have been observing digital and transformation and research, but I do think there's more to come. And this crisis has really shown us the power of that technology and research. And I think the data sharing, the transparency, and the application of digital to really leverage the power, that computing power, to go faster.
Thank you. Doug?
Well, it's pretty hard to follow up those two. But I think one of the things that maybe, I'm a big believer in vaccinations. I'm a big believer in developing and understanding the safety and all of that from a science standpoint, and that communication. It just strikes me that we have such adversity to vaccination, and we know where we come from. If you go back to polio, and you go back to measles, and you go back to all of those smallpox, all of those things, wherever they've come from is we've done a good job of preventing. But I think one of the things that maybe from a human standpoint, and I don't know how you do that, is how do we monitor for these diseases and be able to more quickly respond to them? Again, from our standpoint, we have a bank for foot and mouth disease. We don't have it in the country. don't have the disease in the country, but we have a ready, quick response to it. And I don't know how we do that in the humans, because some of these diseases pop up pretty quickly, but we need to be able to respond very quickly to that. And I think the other side, again, is that communication. We've got to communicate and be solid and consistent on our communication. Those are the things that I say as a big issue.
Well, I want to thank the panelists. To manage expectations, we weren't planning to solve the COVID crisis in this panel. It's only because we only had 25 minutes instead of the full allotted hour. I'm sure in the hour we would have come to a resolution and solution, but I want to thank Dr. Toomey, keep up the good fight, Patty Fritz, and Doug. We're all in support, and the Center for Global Health Innovation and Crisis Coordination Center are working tirelessly along with all of you guys to get us through this pandemic and to put in the new structures and systems and priorities that are prevent this thing from happening the way it rolled out up to this point. We can do better, and I know with all of us together, we can make a difference going forward. So thank you, everyone. I'll turn this back over to Maria.
Great, thank you, Russ, and thank you to all of our panelists. Again, apologies for the audio glitch this morning. We do think we have it figured out, but we are going to record Clark's announcement again and replay it at our lunch keynote. So please join us at 1. We have an exciting keynote, and we're going to have one of the senior leaders at one of the biggest rare disease organizations, NORD, joining us, as well as Rishi Desai, who is the Chief Medical Officer over at Osmosis. So please join us. It's going to prove to be a great conversation about not only the pandemic, but also workforce and really how we can inspire younger generations. So don't miss that, and of course, support patients. Coming up next, we have our career fair and exhibit hall from 10 to 11. Please take a minute to hop in and say hi to one of our exhibitors. It's really important we engage with our exhibitors, and additionally, you earn conference points, so you get registered for a prize. Finally, we have after that at 11 o'clock concurrent sessions, 2 sets of them back to back. So please sign into one of the concurrent sessions and hear what some of our experts have to say about various issues. So again, we'll see you in the exhibit hall at 10. The next round of the concurrent sessions at 11, and we'll see you back for our final keynote of the week at 1 o'clock. Thanks again.